There's a very familiar behavior that almost every cat owner has seen at some point. You get up from your chair, your bed, or the couch, and just a few seconds later when you turn back, your cat is already sitting in that exact spot. At first it seems funny. A lot of people assume it's something simple, oh, they probably just like the warm spot, or they're stealing my seat. But the truth is, most owners are only seeing part of what this behavior really means. Because when a cat chooses to sit where you were just sitting, it's often about more than warmth. It can also be about your scent, the feeling of safety they associate with you, their curiosity about a place where you were just present. And sometimes it's even a quiet way for them to feel close to you, even after you've stepped away. What makes this so interesting is that the more deeply you understand this behavior, the more you start to realize something important. Cats do not love in ways that are always easy to notice. They often choose very small, very quiet gestures, but those gestures can carry a surprising amount of emotion. And in this video, we're going to take a closer look at the real reasons why cats love sitting in the spot you just left, why this behavior is not random at all, and what it may reveal about the bond between you and your cat. It's not just because the spot is still warm. This is the most common explanation. You just got up, the spot is still warm, so of course the cat comes over and lies there. And yes, temperature is part of the story. Cats are highly sensitive to physical comfort. They like places that are warm, stable, free from drafts, and generally comfortable. A chair that still holds some of your body heat is naturally more appealing than a cold surface nearby. But stopping there still doesn't explain everything. Because if warmth were the only thing a cat wanted, they would have plenty of other options: a sunny corner, a blanket, a pillow, or even a softer, more enclosed place. So why is it that sometimes a cat ignores all those other warm spots and waits for the exact moment you get up before moving in? Because what remains in that spot is not just heat, it is the trace of your presence. A place where you were just sitting is not only warmer, it also carries more of you. To us, it may look like an empty chair, but to a cat, it is a space full of information, your scent, the pressure still left in the surface, a familiar feeling, and the signal that this place was just occupied by someone they pay attention to. In other words, the cat is not just looking for a warm place. They are looking for a spot that still holds the feeling of you. 2. Cats are strongly drawn to your familiar scent. Humans usually experience the world mainly through sight. Cats do not. For cats, scent is a crucial part of how they understand their environment, recognize safety, identify who is who, and tell whether a place feels familiar or unfamiliar. That is why a spot you just left can have such special value. It carries your scent in the strongest, freshest way at that moment. Not in a way that humans would necessarily notice, but clearly enough for a cat to understand. This person was just here. A lot of people think cats are independent, distant, and not as attached to their owners as dogs are. But in reality, cats often bond with familiarity in a much more subtle way. They do not always follow you around. They do not always ask to be held or petted. But they pay attention to your scent, your daily rhythm, the places you usually sit, the sound of your footsteps, and the times you move around the house. So when a cat sits in the spot you just left, sometimes it is their way of staying close to the most familiar thing still there in that moment, your scent. This is especially easy to notice in cats that are deeply attached to their owner but do not express it in loud or obvious ways. They do not necessarily need to lie on top of you all day, but once you leave, they may go to the shirt you just took, off the pillow you were just resting on, or the seat you just left behind. That is usually not random. It is often a quiet way of seeking closeness through the familiar traces you leave behind. 3. The place you just sat in feels like a safe zone to your cat. There is something many people do not notice. Cats do not choose where to sit just because it is convenient. They are constantly evaluating their environment based on how safe it feels. A spot where you are just sitting, resting, and showing no signs of danger can look from a cat's point of view like a place that has already been checked and confirmed to be safe. Put simply, if you were just there and everything was fine, that place becomes more trustworthy. This is especially true for cats that are sensitive, easily startled, or living in an environment with a lot of change. For them, any spot associated with calmness and the presence of a familiar person can feel deeply reassuring. Many owners assume the cat is simply stealing their seat, but sometimes what the cat is doing is not taking your spot. They are choosing the place that feels safest in that moment. You just left, which means that spot was just filled with stability, familiarity, and clear signs that nothing threatening happened there. For an animal like a cat whose instincts are built around observing, assessing, and staying alert to the environment that matters a great deal, in other words, the place you just got up from can feel like an invisible message to your cat. It's okay here, this place is safe. 4. Sometimes your cat simply doesn't want to lose that connection with you too quickly. This is the part that many cat owners will probably find especially touching. Sometimes, when a cat sits in the spot you just left it, is not only because of your scent or the remaining warmth, it is because they do not want the sense of connection between the two of you to disappear too quickly. Cats do not always express emotion in direct ways. A lot of their attachment happens through distance. They stay near you without necessarily touching you. They lie in the same room, watch you follow you for a few steps, sit where you usually sit, or choose objects that carry your scent. That is a very cat-like kind of closeness, not dramatic, not loud, but very intentional. So when you leave your seat and your cat moves into that exact place, it can be their way of holding on to that feeling of connection, as if they are choosing to be where you were just a few seconds ago, not to replace you, but to stay close to your presence a little longer. That is why this behavior often feels both funny and strangely emotional to so many people. On the outside, it may look like your cat is simply taking your spot, but underneath, it may actually be one of the gentlest ways they know how to show affection. 5. Sometimes your cat is curious about the place you were just focused on. Cats are extremely observant. They do not just pay attention to who you are, they also pay attention to what you are interested in, where you spend time, and what you are doing. If you have been sitting in one place for a while, your cat may begin to see that spot as something special. In a cat's mind, a place where you have spent a lot of time can feel worth investigating. Many owners assume cats are indifferent to human behavior, but in reality, cats watch us much more closely than we often realize. They know where you usually sit to work. They know where you tend to rest. They know which places hold your attention. They know which parts of the house are strongly connected to your presence. So sometimes when a cat walks over to the place you just left, the thought may be something like, was something important happening there for this person? That kind of curiosity is completely natural. It is not so different from when a cat climbs onto your laptop while you are working, lies on the book you are reading, or steps onto the keyboard right when you are concentrating. It is not necessarily because they dislike you being busy. It is because your attention makes something seem important in their eyes. And the chair you just got up from can easily become one of those hotspots. 6. Sometimes this is also a very subtle form of social marking. Cats live in a world shaped heavily by scent and familiar signals. They rub their faces on table legs, wall edges, your hands and objects around the house for a reason. It is usually a way of leaving familiar scent behind, turning a space into their area, or at least into a place that feels safe and known. So when a cat sits, rolls, lies down, or rubs against the place you just left, sometimes they are also blending their scent with a spot that already carries yours. This is not necessarily possessiveness in the aggressive sense that many people imagine. In most cases, it is much softer than that. It is more like the cat is turning that place into a shared scent space, a zone that carries signs of both you and them. That is also why in many homes cats are especially drawn to personal items that belong to their owners: shirts, blankets, pillows, office chairs, even house slippers. Those things are not just familiar, they are places where your scent and the cat's scent can overlap most easily. Seen from that angle, sitting in the place you just left is not only about choosing a comfortable spot, it can also be a very gentle, very cat-like social behavior, staying close, blending scents and making the world around them feel more familiar. 7. If your cat does this often, it may be a sign of attachment. Not every cat that sits in the spot you just left is expressing the exact same thing. Some do it because the spot is warm, some do it out of habit, some do it because the location gives them a good view, some do it out of curiosity. But if your cat does this often, especially if they do it mainly with your spot and not other people's, then it is often a beautiful sign of attachment. What makes this important is that attachment in cats does not always look the way humans expect it to. They do not always come running when you call. They do not always enjoy being held. They do not always express emotion in ways that are easy to read. But they choose to be near you. They choose your scent. They choose the places where you usually sit. They choose spaces connected to your presence when they want to rest. And those repeated choices are often where a cat's feelings show most clearly. Because cats rarely fake distance. If a cat regularly goes to the place you just left, there is a strong chance that in their world you are part of what feels safe, familiar, and trustworthy. And that is not a small thing. 6. Sometimes this is also a very subtle form of social marking. Cats rely heavily on scent and familiar signals to navigate the world around them. When they rub their faces on table legs, wall corners, your hands, or objects around the house, they are not doing it randomly. In many cases, this is how they leave familiar scent behind, helping a space feel like their area, or at least a place that feels safe and known. So when a cat sits, rolls, lies down, or rubs against the spot you just left, They may also be mixing their own scent with a place that already carries yours. This is not necessarily possessiveness in the aggressive way many people imagine. Most of the time, it is much gentler than that. It is more like the cat is turning that spot into a shared scent space, a place that holds traces of both you and them. That is also why in many homes cats are especially drawn to personal items that belong to their owners: shirts, blankets, pillows, office chairs, even house slippers. Those items are not just familiar, they are also the places where your scent and your cat's scent can overlap most easily. Seen from this perspective, sitting in the spot you just left is not only about choosing a comfortable place, it can also be a very soft, very cat-like social behavior, staying close, blending scents and making the world around them feel more familiar.